when we look, say, at back injuries, such a huge problem, right? Or any physical injuries for that matter, after about 90 days, the tissue damage should be healed, right? The problem is after those 90 days and you see that the tissue has healed, why is the person in such pain? And then why do they begin developing, the sleep problems or hypoglycemia or different things like that? And it's because the tissue damage is fine, but what happened is because the symptoms were allowed to persist so long, they began changing the nervous system and the actual shape of the brain. We see how the brain shapes. The good news is it could be brought back, right? And that's why you need to attack everything as quickly as possible as one part of the nervous system. That's how you reverse it. And by the way, that's how I want to speak a little bit about litigation. When individuals feel like they're being taken care of appropriately, you reduce litigation. You systematically are reversing the overall cost of the claim because you're accelerating the healing process. What you can't do is try to just do the orthopedic thing, because if it's after 90 days and they're still suffering from pain, what happens? They're sent to pain management. What pain management? Now they're going to start getting medications. They're going to get anti-inflammatories. The truth of the matter is, inflammation at this point, even if it's a PTSD, is throughout your body. Clinical nutrition is much more effective in reducing inflammation throughout your body, so you're able to gain function. And my last point, because it's so important what you said, is instead of chasing symptoms, I'm in constant pain, I can't function, I can't think, you have to focus on function, not on the symptom. So if you could get me now to start washing my dishes, to start lifting up things, my others, and remember, it's persistent pain, my other symptoms are going to start coming down. But what that takes is intensive work. It takes working with a combined psychologist and fitness trainer or Feldenkrais person. It takes pulling in a neurologist to show them that in their brain, there is no pathology. It's a nervous system thing. So that's why we refer to all of this. The fastest way of reversing a persistent or, unfortunately, a chronic condition is in a transdisciplinary way. You don't want the neurologist going off and doing their thing, the psychiatrist, the psychologist, the physical therapist. They all have to be working as one mind, and they all have to have the same responsibility to achieve the outcome. And the outcome is making sure that the patient has responsibility for their healing. That's what we call self-management and self-efficacy. At the end of the day, a patient who has fallen into what we call this biopsychosocial vortex, this chronicity, has to become an expert in understanding how this is reversible. And so they become part of the team. That is the fastest way to heal the trajectory and avoid this epidemic. Because when we look at the epidemic of brain injuries, again, in comp and in, whether it's chronic pain and the associated things, we've created them by not following evidence-based architecture of care. What we continue doing is this kind of primitive stuff. And that's why I'm saying that risk manager claims, the of risk managers, they're the heroes. They're implementing this stuff. And we see it across San Diego and in other municipalities and agencies and employers that are doing it. They're turning the whole system around. And I think that's always what's driven a lot of us, the excitement to know that this stuff is reversible, and you see the lives you save, and you see the extent to which risk, I'm looking at Dr. Ali. Most risk and police and fire chiefs don't work together. It's unbelievable that they don't. You get these people to work together, you're accelerating the healing process. You're using the innovation of introducing the most effective systems that are being driven by the risk managers. You're training by the way, training claims people to understand the populations they're dealing with is a real game changer. So you have claims folks that should be trained on the general population, different claims folks that need to specialize with law enforcement, claims people who specialize in fire and rescue, because the cultures are so radically different and the way it impacts the nervous system and the families and so on. But the thing not to be afraid of, and this is the last point I'll make. So I was a consultant years ago to some very creative major insurance carriers. And so we demonstrated, in the early 20s, how you're able to reverse these things. So this stuff was being reversed outside of comp. And two of the VPs said together, can we stay away? Now, this is in 2002. Can we stay away from using the term biopsychosocial? It sounds too expensive. It sounds like there's psychology in it, okay? And that has been an ongoing legacy, because even when we look at the most complex psychological injuries, like complex PTSD, those are 100% reversible. And I think that's the message that we all have to take away. And if you look at cities like San Diego, where they're systematically reversing all their PTSD on an outpatient basis. Inpatient, you need very little inpatient even to treat SUD. Most SUD should just be treated as part of the underlying and not as a separate program.